naturally carries, so I'm going to try to talk loud. So yeah, and if you can't hear me, I don't know, just like wave and I'll try to stand closer to you. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here this morning to share something with you all that was really life-changing for me, and continues to be life-changing the more I learn this and the deeper I go in my understanding. So there's a couple of preambles here. First of all, if you'd like to hear something new this morning, if from that introduction you think there might be something that could be impactful to you, I want to give you a little instruction on how to listen to me. Okay, now we don't, well, sometimes people talk about listening, and you kind of hear, like about active listening, that's sort of a term that's used. I'm going to suggest that there's a different kind of listening that you might have never occurred to you before, and it's called listening with nothing on your mind. Right? Not so easy. Okay? But here's the thing. Nicole mentioned that what I teach is a psycho-spiritual understanding. Alright? And what that means to me is that to get this, something has to touch you in your soul. This is not an intellectual understanding. And when we're using our brains, we're in our intellect. And the only way to let your soul be touched is to turn off that intellect. So I'm going to give you just a couple of hints on what it means to listen with nothing on your mind. And you can try it. I wasn't real good at it at first either. So it's just kind of like a good thing to be aware of. Right? So one of my teachers, his name is Michael Neal, and don't write it down, but you can. I'll make sure you can get in touch with me if you have any questions, because he was a great teacher and he's a great resource for this. Michael Neal said he took us through an exercise, and he said, okay, first listen like you're planning to agree. You know that feeling, like. Right? Like, oh yeah, I know I'm going to agree with you. Yeah, okay, yeah. And you're nodding your head. Okay. So that's one way of listening with something on your mind. Right? I want you to do that. The opposite of that is listening to disagree. Right? Like, I know from the beginning that I'm not going to believe this person. Yeah. Okay. No, and no. Right? I don't want you to do that either. Okay. So Michael says, listen like a rock with ears. Like you're just sitting there, and the words are going by. Okay, so that might work for you. It didn't work for me, but I share it because it does work for some people. Another way to listen, my teacher, Linda Pransky, she says, let the words just go past your head. So you can try that. And Sydney Banks, another, he was the original teacher of this understanding. Sydney Banks said, don't listen to my words, listen for a feeling. Now here's my feeling. This is a feeling I get when I'm listening with nothing on my mind. You know when somebody asks you something and you know you don't know? And you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes that's uncomfortable for us. But that feeling of knowing that you don't know, that to me is listening with nothing on my mind. It's like an empty bowl that I'm not trying to fill. Just empty. I don't know. Okay? So if you can get there, that's where I'd love you to be. Because that's where we open up the possibility to hear something new. So, next thing I want you to think about before I even start is what I'm going to explain to you is not a how-to. Right? People that work with me, they come out with less stress. They come out with more productivity. They come out with more clarity, right? But it's not a how-to. And so often we're used to reading, the 10 steps or the 3 steps, and this is how you do it, or this is what you practice. This is not a how-to, this is an understanding. So what does that mean? Sometimes I like to equate it with the difference between physics and engineering. Like if somebody only taught you engineering and you didn't know the physics behind engineering, you still might be able to build a bridge, but you wouldn't be able to create your own bridge. So this is the physics. I think it's also like if anybody's a baker, in my book it's kind of like baking. Like I can follow a recipe really well and it'll come out well, but I don't know anything about the chemistry behind baking, so I can't create my own cake recipes. If I could, that would be an understanding of baking that I don't currently have. And so that's what I'm going to share with you. This is an understanding. There's nothing about it that's a how-to. Okay? So you're going to be tempted to say like, well, okay, so what do I do? Don't worry about that. Don't worry. All right. So here's what I've learned. In the summer of 2017, I was watching this guy that I used to like to watch him coach. He would post YouTube videos of him coaching people. And he said, he made a kind of an offhanded comment. He said, one of my former coaches, Michael Neal. And I went, I wonder what Michael Neal is like. And I looked up Michael Neal, and it changed what Michael was teaching. So I just want to pause because what happened to me in that moment is really, it's part of what I'm going to share with you. And what I learned was that there are 3 things that are true for every human being on the planet. And to the extent that we see those 3 things at work, and we can start to see them deeper and deeper and deeper, we start to relax. We start to relax into life. Our stress reduces and we get better at everything. Okay, so here's what happened to me in that moment. Something struck me. It's like the mystery of life. Like, why did I here go check out Michael Neal? And Sydney Banks, who was my teacher's teacher, says he calls that universal mind. There's a lot going on in life that we will never understand. And everything that brings us serendipity, every time we like turn a corner and we run into somebody that we weren't expecting to see, every time the phone rings and we're like, how did they know to call me? Sydney Banks called that universal mind. And we're never going to understand it, and yet we're all living in it all the time. And it's really cool when we start to see it at work. You know, I kind of want to say, like, there's something else to it too, right? Like, every spring the flowers bloom. Every spring the leaves come back on the trees, and every fall they turn color again. There's so much magic happening around us, and we are part of that. We're living in it. Letting ourselves experience that is it's just super powerful. And for me, it lets me relax, right? To know that I'm part of that magic. And it's true for everybody. It's true for everybody on the planet. And there's a second thing that's true for everybody on the planet, and that is that we all think. Right? We all think. We all have the power of thought. And there's certain things that are true about thought. There's certain things that are true about thought for everybody. Some thoughts are conscious thoughts. Some thoughts are unconscious thoughts. That's true for everybody. Thoughts occur to us. And we really don't have any say in what thoughts occur to us. They just show up, right? Why one day are you obsessing over something and another day you're not? I don't know. But it's a property of thought. It's something about the nature of thought that's true for everybody. And here's something that you might not realize, because I didn't realize it. We create our experiences through our thoughts. I'm going to say it again. We create our experiences through our thoughts. every single experience we have comes through our thoughts. No exceptions. And we're constantly fooled. We're constantly fooled into thinking that our circumstances are creating our thoughts. And it's the other way around. We don't live from the outside in, we live from the inside out. Our thoughts create our experiences, our thoughts create our emotions. And when I started to see that, all my relationships changed. Because I realized that that person that was driving me crazy, it wasn't them. It wasn't them. It was me. And that doesn't mean that I don't have people in my life that drive me crazy. I still do. Right? Right? And my dear husband who's here, he drives me crazy sometimes too. But I can't blame him anymore. I can't blame them anymore. Right? Right? So I still get caught up. I still have moments where I'm pissed off at that person that cut me off in traffic. But then I remember. And I get over it faster than I ever used to. It's really cool. Now there's a third thing that's true for everybody on the planet. This one took me a little longer to understand, so I'll try my best to explain it. But there's a third thing that's true. Okay, so let me just go over the first two. Number one, there's I didn't call it this before, but there's an intelligent energy in the universe that we're all a part of that we will never understand. Okay? Sydney Banks called it universal mind. Number two, thought. We all experience thought, and we all live in thought. We all live in the feeling of our thinking. And number three, we all have consciousness, which means we're aware. So what's the nature of consciousness? Sometimes we're more in tune to what's true, and sometimes we're less in tune to what's true. Consciousness is the lens through which we see everything. So sometimes I'm seeing the world through, I like to say, dirty glasses, right? I'm seeing it through my thinking, and sometimes my thinking isn't clear, and sometimes I'm not really understanding what's going on. And that's a lower level of consciousness. And often it comes with a bad mood. And then sometimes my consciousness goes up. And in my experience, consciousness is always going up and down, up and down, up and down. On my good days, my consciousness is really high. I can see the beauty in the world. I can see the beauty in the people around me. I feel good. And then I have days when my consciousness dips, and I don't feel so good. And I'm blaming people, and I'm blaming circumstances, or I'm blaming the weather, right? Or I'm just not happy. But I know in those moments when my consciousness has dipped that that's what it is. And that it's going to get better, because it always does. Always. How we do it. Great. Let's hear from you guys. What are you hearing me say? Or what questions do you have?
I got one. I think that's definitely true. I used to let people bother me, like, you think they did something to offend you or whatever. Like, and people, you think they're going to do things consciously, you have no idea they're going to do it. That's just the way the world is. And once I learned to let that go, most people are good-hearted, and it made my life fun. So just accept things for what they are. I definitely.
It's really cool when we realize that. And even when somebody says something hurtful or does something mean, right? The fact of the matter is, they're doing the best they can in that moment, given the thinking that they've got and the level of consciousness that they're living in. Yeah. It's usually not about us, right? Even though it feels like it. Who else?